Hello, everybody. I am here for a special episode, and I'm here with my good friend John Hajicek, who has some humongous news. So, John, thank you so much for jumping right on with me. Tell us where you are and what you have to tell us.
Well, you can see behind me the Community of Christ Temple, the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So I'm standing on the original temple lot that Joseph Smith dedicated in 1831 to build a temple here in Independence, Missouri. But as you know, there's another temple. It's built at the same time in Kirtland, Ohio. They broke ground in 1833 and dedicated it in 1836. It's sold today. They sold the Kirtland Temple. I
So,
put in a bid on it, aware that there was some movement or potential movement towards selling some historic assets. And so I put together financing and made a written offer to buy the temple for $100 million, and also made a similar offer on their Nauvoo property and their translation manuscripts, like the Joseph Smith translation of the Bible. I am sure that they announced or are in the process of announcing that the temple has been sold. But I think they're responding to me coming out today and announcing it myself this afternoon. The Kirtland Temple has been sold. The Nauvoo properties have been sold. The burial place of Joseph and Hiram and Emma has been sold. Presumably the Mormon translation manuscript, the Bible translation manuscript now joins the Book of Mormon translation manuscript that they previously sold, the printer's manuscript. What else can I tell
are you
you?
able to turn this sound is a little bit funky. Can you turn your notifications off?
I seem to turn my notifications off because when I put it on Do Not Disturb, then you couldn't hear me.
Okay, we'll just deal with it because this is big news.
I turned my volume off, then I can't hear you, maybe. I got it.
Okay, we'll make it work.
I got it. Okay.
Okay, so that's better. Well, maybe. I'll try and let you do most of the talking.
There's police motorcycle, motorcades, and dump trucks and everything out here on the street. So it's windy today. It's kind of a overcast, blustery day.
Okay, so I want to know. So the Community of Christ owned all of these properties in historic Kirtland. Did they announce that they were going up for sale? I know I've heard I've heard noise from the church president that they needed money to fund the retirement. What's the word I'm looking for? The retirements of the executives of the Community of Christ Church.
Correct. That's exactly
right. Say that again.
You have that exactly right. Yes.
Okay. So how did you know that they were available for sale?
Well, I live here in Independence, Missouri, and I'm a collector, if you will, a curator of the rarest Mormon documents and manuscripts. And I have been. My family first came here to Independence in 1973. We were interested in contested Mormon history. And by 1981, I was working with Mormon manuscripts and rare Mormon books. And by 1991, I was really the leading collector of rare Mormon manuscripts. So I've kind of got an inside track here with a lot of people here in Independence. So I just knew I could understand their language and the sorts of things they were alluding to. So I knew there was a potential opportunity to purchase the temple, and I made them an offer. Probably my offer was high enough. They acknowledged my offer in writing, but they didn't accept my offer in writing.
So there's someone with more money than you that was able to outbid you. Any guesses on who that might be?
Well, things like this work often with philanthropists helping out, as they did with the Nauvoo Temple and the Book of Mormon manuscripts. So there's a good chance that the church went to some of its favorite people that care about the church and church history, and they probably helped the church, the one in Utah. Now, I have a third view of Latter-day Saint history, as you know. I'm a Wisconsinite Mormon from 1844, from the succession crisis. And so the followers of James Strang that lived in Wisconsin in the 1840s had title to the Kirtland Temple in the 1840s. But James Strang was killed, a lot like Joseph Smith, in 1856. And by 1860, the county court in Lake County, Ohio, sold the temple to pay taxes. And Joseph Smith III ended up with it by 1862. He got it for $150. He didn't have a clear title, though. There was a problem with that title. And so his own church, in a friendly lawsuit, sued him in 1875, sued Joseph Smith III, and he forfeited so that the church could gain a clear title to the Kirtland Temple. However, the judge actually disagreed with them. They throw that around. They have for 150 years, like they won a legal victory establishing themselves as the true church. But in fact, the court actually dismissed that case and didn't sign the proposed order that the plaintiffs in the case, the reorganized church, submitted a proposed order for the judge, and he didn't sign it because he dismissed the case. But the reorganized church, published that proposed order anyway, as if it was the victory. And in fact, they held the church then for 25 or more years as squatters until 1901. They actually got title by adverse possession, by squatters' rights. They had it long enough.
Okay.
The LDS tried to sell it. Ironically, they're buying it back today, but they tried to sell both the Nauvoo Temple and the Kirtland Temple in 1846 and 47.
You mean Brigham Young tried to? Is that what you're talking about when they were leaving? Oh, I couldn't hear any of that. Can you repeat what you were just saying?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so, yeah.
Now I can't hear you.
Okay, so that gives us the history that Brigham Young tried to sort of accumulate and sell the church properties, but he also didn't have clear title because James Strang objected to Brigham selling the Nauvoo Temple, correct?
Right. So, yes, and I have a paper about that I wrote and presented at the John Whitmer Historical Association back in 1997 in Kirtland.
Okay.
On the sale of the temples. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Okay, that's good. So do you know, it sounds to me like the Community of Christ has just sold pretty much everything they have. If they sold all of those properties in Kirtland and even the Joseph Smith translation, is that correct?
63 acres that their auditorium, which is kind of like a tabernacle, they hold their conferences here. It's kind of like a conference center. They still have this piece of the Independence property, and I don't know if they sold every last piece of property in Nauvoo, but it sure sounds like it. And I don't know if it's emphasized enough, but the Nauvoo house is more important of the Nauvoo properties. It's less well known, but the Nauvoo house is part of a prophecy, section 124 in the D&C, Doctrine and Covenants. Covers the building of the Nauvoo house as well as the Nauvoo temple. So
we're talking about properties both in Kirtland and in Nauvoo that have been sold?
Both the properties in Kirtland and in Nauvoo. They've sold the Joseph Smith Mansion House. I call it the Executive Mansion. The Smith Homestead, that's the log cabin. They sold the Red Brick Store where the Relief Society was formed, and Joseph announced his candidacy for president, and maybe endowments were held. Some people write about that. They sold Sidney Rigdon's home and Hiram Smith's home site. So they've got the whole First Presidency sites, and they sold the original printing, the Times and Seasons that we see today when we go to Nauvoo. That was actually built after Joseph Smith's death. He never saw that building next to John Taylor's house. So they sold the original print site. And William Marks, one of my favorite people in Mormon history, one of my very, very favorite people, William Marks. My friend Cheryl Bruno is writing a book about William Marks right now with John Dinger.
Yes.
So that might come out later this year. But anyway, yeah, they sold the William Marks house, my favorite house of Nauvoo.
Wow. And so your hypothesis, your guess at this point, you're well informed and well experienced. Expectation is that the LDS Church used a third party member, most likely, to purchase, or more than one maybe, to purchase all of these. Go ahead.
Almost certainly, right.
Okay. And so these are likely to become LDS visitor sites, historic sites of the LDS Church.
So that's my concern as a stakeholder. Says you are, and other people are some of those that are stakeholders like me are not.
Can you
members.
say that again? It got really fuzzy. Back up and say that again.
Some people like me are stakeholders in this that aren't members of either church. I'm so sorry about the wind outside, but
it's okay.
We're stakeholders, and so my heart is in that. And I saw the Community of Christ and previously the American Church as caretakers, custodians, stewards of this heritage that they kept open and made available to all of us. One of our concerns, of course, today is hoping that the church in Utah will never change that. We'll always keep that open as a historic site.
Right, and I feel some concern that it could be turned into a missionary tool for the LDS Church to kind of claim that the LDS Church is the automatic and only descendant of these properties, of these spaces, which would
for their legitimacy, right? As the presidency's homes in Nauvoo, it changes the messaging in Nauvoo to have not just Joseph Smith's house in their hands. They didn't have before, but now also Hiram Smith and Sidney Rigdon and William Marks.
Yeah, because William Marks didn't even go. Well, Hiram, Joseph, and William Marks, none of them came west. None of them were members of the LDS Church.
Right.
So yes, how does that affect you as a Strangite? The thought of the LDS Church. I've got your finger.
I'm plugging a battery there. I'm happy for my.
Okay.
Sorry. It's so bright out here, and my screen dimmed because of the battery level. I'm happy for my friends in Utah. My only concern, my real concern, is preservation.
Say that again. Is what?
My real concern and only concern is preservation.
Preservation. Okay, so as long as the sites are well preserved, and maybe since the LDS Church had more funds, they will be able to do a better job of preservation, because I think my hope is that the LDS Church would be dedicated to preservation as well.
Well, my reference is the Salt Lake Temple, which they've now utterly destroyed as a historic object. They've ripped off the roof, they've ripped off the spires and the sculpture of the angel Moroni. They have gutted it. They've taken every piece of wood trim, molding, woodwork, trim, whatever you call it, millwork, and
the murals. Yeah,
they put it all through a wood chipper, and there's people here on the temple lot with me, and they went underneath the foundation in a way that they bought every part of the foundation. They removed it essentially from its sandstone foundation. And so, what will they do with the Kirtland Temple? Will it be like what they're going to do with Provo? That would be even worse, where they're pretending to remodel the Provo Temple, but they're building a new temple over the old temple and then taking out the old temple from the inside.
Is that what they're doing? I didn't even know.
Yes, the new temple is larger than the old temple, but they say it's a remodel or a renovation. It's going to be square,
Oh, go back on your. Hopefully we'll get him back. I'll pause till we get him back. One sec. Okay, we've got John back. He's plugged in with the battery now.
Sorry about that. My battery got low. I couldn't see the screen anymore. And anyway, I've got a battery pack on it.
That's perfect. So I'm wondering, do you think there's a chance? Okay, do you think there's a chance that LDS Church would turn the Kirtland Temple into? Oh, I guess I lost him again. We'll try one more time.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yep, we're trying again. And I wanted to know if you think there's any possibility that the LDS Church will turn the Kirtland Temple into a functioning LDS temple that requires recommends and goes through.
Harder than that. I sure hope harder than that. But yes, one of my concerns for years has been that they would do like they did Provo, or like the Provo City Center Temple, that Provo Tabernacle, that they would, lift it up like they did in Provo and pour a concrete parking garage under it, or locker rooms.
And start doing endowment sessions and LDS temple work.
And then keep this out like they did Nauvoo. When we did Nauvoo, we had high hopes that that would be at least partially open temple for visitors to see the history of the Nauvoo temple. We even hoped at that time. I did a petition in the year 2000, hoping that that the church would put it on a different place, like next to where the original temple was, because I felt like the foundation of the original Nauvoo temple itself is sacred. Their view is the new temple is sacred, of course, that way. And so they wanted a working temple.
So I think that your perspective is extremely important on this, because as a member of another church that shares our heritage, it must be really frustrating and painful to have the LDS Church claim the heritage only for ourselves. These historic spots, turn them into buildings that exclude and that divide. Even if it is sacred and important to us, it excludes all of the others who share our heritage and anyone who would want to learn about our heritage, rather than being places that unify and bring us together. I think that's really important for all of us to recognize. All of the LDS people who might be celebrating that now we have the Kirtland Temple.
Right. So we have other stakeholders in this. There are at least 6 original claimants to the succession crisis in 1844. The followers of James Strang, Brigham Young,
Sidney Brickton,
William Kirtland, the Reorganized Church. Did I miss somebody? The followers of Alpheus Cutler. So 6 original groups, and those segmented into hundreds of, I don't really call them churches. I don't think hundreds of churches, but camps or schools of thought or family groups, and people that share in believing that these are sacred spaces, and that it's part of their heritage, that they're stakeholders.
yes, plus all the restoration branches who still are literal believers in the Book of Mormon, as I believe you are, as a Stringite. Are you?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And so, okay, this is fascinating. Is it okay to ask, who did you have a coalition that was helping you to put together that $100 million bid, or was that just you all on your own gathering financing? Did you have other interested parties?
I was working with a group of people
who are all interested in this.
Yes.
So how are you all feeling today?
Well, it's mixed feelings. Obviously, it's a momentous day. It's probably the most important day, one of the most important days in church history in my lifetime. It will reinvigorate the LDS Church in a way that I like. I think that some of the malaise and depression and empty pews, this kind of thing helps ignite that. It helps ignite people and unify people, and excite people. Do you remember the excitement when President Hinckley in the year 2000 or 1999, maybe it was, announced the rebuilding of the Nauvoo Temple? And that was just so exciting. And there was a renewed interest in church history. That's been a long, long time. That's sort of fatigued now. And this is good for you. This is good for me. This is good for everybody being interested in church history.
Okay. You're very optimistic. What's the other side of the mixed feeling? So that's the good side. What would you have liked to what was your purpose in buying it?
There's a part of me that doesn't think that the reorganized church had ethical or moral ownership of the temple in Kirtland, and doesn't think that that they have the right to sell it.
Okay, especially to fund their retirement plans.
Well, right. So I saw it like like if the United States told you that they were going to sell the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and the Capitol and the White House, that's what happened today. And if they told you they were going to do it to fund Joe,
Oh, we'll come right back. Oh, here he is. Go back. Say that again. We lost you just when you were saying they told us you were going to fund Joe Biden. Is that what you can say?
fund Joe Biden's retirement with the money of selling the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and the White House and the Capitol and the Supreme Court building, that's what it feels like.
Okay.
To me, you're selling my heritage and you're selling it right out from underneath me. So,
that is hard. Can you tell me if your offer had been accepted, what would have been your plan with those properties? Were you just building on the temple, or were you bidding on the houses and the Joseph Smith translation as well?
Well, the $100 million was for the Kirtland Temple alone, but I made separate offers on the other buildings that did not have a dollar amount. But I proposed they sell the Nauvoo property first, actually, and not sell the Kirtland Temple. But I did put in a written offer, which they acknowledged, for the Kirtland Temple, and my offer included stipulations that I wanted that the temple could not be sold to a church for some time. I envisioned being 25 years. That it could not be resold, and that it would be held in trust and be open to the public and not be modifiable.
Okay.
And that was open to negotiation in my offer. But I also told them I thought that the temple was worth $250 million, but that I could afford 100. That I could afford 100.
And this is huge news. I'm curious to see. Oh, go ahead.
Did I say thousand? I meant million.
Yes, yeah.
Worth, but that I could afford 100 million. And
I'm curious to see if it will have the same reinvigorating effect that the Nauvoo Temple did with President Hinckley, because, well, for a couple of reasons. One, we're in a very different time as a church. President Hinckley was just before the entire explosion and the floodgates opening of people leaving the church. We're 20 years into that now. And then also we're not I hope they don't use the President Hinckley model, because that would be the reinvigoration of we're building a temple on the Kirtland Temple site, which would mean we're building an LDS temple, which it sounds to me like you feel would be completely tragic.
Yes, again, I don't know if I finished before my done the Salt Lake Temple. They put all the interior through the wood chipper. They've undermined the foundation. They've taken the roof off. And yeah, restoration, they did it with the Orson Hyde House in Nauvoo the last couple of years, 3 years ago maybe. The LDS churches, the Utah church's definition of restoration is completely different than my definition of restoration. When they restore something, there's almost nothing left of the original. And it's almost allegorical, almost metaphorical to how they treat history, right? They want to completely retell the story. And,
Can we talk about why that's important? Like one example is the red brick store, the upper floor of the red brick store. There was a paper written by, I won't remember who it was, but they did a archaeological investigation of the red brick store where they went layer by layer in even under the plaster on the walls and found the mural that was painted and what year it was painted. And the LDS Church has tried to claim that mural, say that it was done for that 1842. They claim that Joseph did the first endowment in the upper floor of the red brick store in 1842, and that mural on the wall is evidence of that. But the archaeological findings showed that that was done decades later, most likely by David Hiram, who was Joseph's son, who Emma was pregnant with at the time of Joseph's death. I want to bring this up as an example to say why the important structures are critical on their own for their own sake because of what we learn from them. It's not just about us being able to go to a nice visitor center and be told by missionaries that this is the kind of bed they slept in or this is the kind of house they were in. There's a much deeper importance. Maybe you can speak more to that as a sort of artifact collector, as an expert in material culture that most of us don't understand.
right. So their scripts that they use in Nauvoo are very. I've got a friend here, Patrick McKay. You know
Oh,
him?
hello. I know the name. Yes. Introduce us.
This is Michelle Stone.
Hi, Michelle.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
It's good to meet
I'm on
you.
But yeah, so Mark McKiernan's study, I think, is the one you're referring to on the red brick store. And you're right. As a material culture historian, I'm working with, I see these things through that kind of a lens, whether it's a manuscript that I'm looking at I'm getting a message saying KSL wants to talk to me.
I beat him to it.
You know, whether it's a physical object like a manuscript or a physical object like the temple, these things need to be understood through a certain kind of a lens. We study paintings, we study rare books, and there's something to be how you study the first edition Book of Mormon or the Nauvoo edition of the Book of Mormon as a physical artifact, not just for its text, that helps you understand how it was produced and it just tells us things about that process and how it may affect the text.
Okay. Do you want to introduce us to Patrick if you're there with him? Should I know him, who he is? Are you a member of the Community of Christ or a historian?
I'm a member of the Reorganized Church, and I meet in a Restoration branch.
Okay.
In fact, I was a part of the very first Restoration branch that was ever formed in May of 1904.
Okay. So with the prices, maybe.
Before the prices.
Okay.
In that branch.
All right. And so how are you and your church members feeling about this today?
Well, it's brand new. I don't think too many people know it yet, but it's devastating. As John would say, we sold Capitol Hill, the White House, Magna Carta, the Declaration of Independence, and the U.S. Constitution. Compared to what's
they'll be right
happening.
back. So it sounds like selling our birthright for a mess of porridge is what I'm hearing.
That's pretty good, Michelle.
Okay. I'm glad you approve. So, okay, can you tell us, John and Patrick, I'd like to know from both of you, as members of the LDS Church, of course, I love my church. I'm happy. My hope is that these historic sites that are so truly invaluable will be kept in good hands. What can we as members of the church do you think, to encourage hello, Bobby, to encourage our church? Like, how can we help? What would you like to see us do? What call out would you like to put?
Well,
what hope do we have?
Michelle, I would just say this: the LDS Church, they do a good job of taking care of properties and using them for historic sites and making them available and maintaining them. So from that vantage point, and the Book of Mormon, they're going to maintain that in its the best shape that they can possibly keep it in. So I don't have any worries about that kind of thing. The question is the message that will be attached to it is a little different than what we prescribe to. And so it'll be used as a marketing tool for the restoration through the vantage point of the LDS Church, which is a little different than ours.
And I don't agree with their job with restoration and preservation. They pour a lot of money into it, but like I said, I should show you pictures of the Orson Hyde House and know how they quote more than that. They don't really restore; they tear down and rebuild. And they rebuild history in through their own lens.
So what we are hoping for is that restoration rather than recreation, right? We are wanting to encourage restoration, and I think we also are wanting to encourage not making these locations partisan, not making them sectarian, but keeping them more broadly representative of all of the branches. Go ahead, John.
I'm saying they need to work on preservation, not restoration.
That's what I mean. Preserved, not restored, and keeping them open, not making them marketing tools for our branch of Mormonism.
Michelle, it's kind of like the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon belongs to everyone who has a witness of its truthfulness. The Bible belongs to all Christians. So does the Book of Mormon. And so no church has, they may have an original manuscript, but they do not have the only rights to publish it and produce it. It belongs to anyone who has a witness of its truthfulness. And that's the same with these artifacts of history.
Okay. This is. Go ahead.
I do have to get running.
Okay, I want to thank you so much for sharing this information. Please keep us updated as more information comes out. So thank you, John. Thank you, Patrick.
Nice to meet you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Well, big news, and hopefully there will be more information coming. Thank you for joining us.